Hello everyone, this is Phi, checking out Age of Brass. This is a game I've not played before. We're going to give it a playtest here and see if we can give some feedback. Going to try to jump right into this one. I've not seen anything past this screen here. We've got this interesting title screen. Actually very interesting, this sort of materials on these cylinders here. That's really funky to look at. So, not a lot to look at here. Doesn't look like there's any settings or anything so far, but we've got what looks like a character select. I don't know what this honk DVD is. Level is here, pipeline purge. Looks like clicking on this doesn't actually do anything currently, so maybe we just click on start. I'm not sure. I did grab my gamepad Xbox controller. I'm not sure if this is sporting that or not, but it doesn't appear that, at least in the menu here, that it's working. So I suppose for now I'll set that over here. And we'll just click on start. Alright, tutorial for hollow points. Move ASD, shoot is mouse left, and never let go. Oh, okay. So it does look like, Alright, can I, there's literally a pile of, shells, okay. Can I pause? Okay, I can pause that. I'm gonna like rub my eye here. Yeah, it does appear to be mouse and keyboard oriented. I'm not sure if the gamepad works at all. I can try that out real quick here. Looks like we've got, yeah, it looks like the right stick will aim for me. But do I want to use the gamepad? I'm not sure. So for something like this where you're aiming, I tend to prefer mouse and keyboard over like a twin stick setup. I don't particularly like twin stick for most games of this nature. It's a little bit on the loud side here. Let me check the volume level here. Just in case, I'll turn that down a little smidge in the capture there. I think it's not too bad, but music is just kind of like a little bit distracting, but that's okay. So yeah, let's see. Looks like in the top right is the health there, which I'm taking a bunch of damage. Is that oh, okay. I thought that was like something like a power up floating at me or something. So I don't entirely understand. So we're like literally filling the space with the shells here. So the pacing of this being as it is, it makes it hard for me to like to talk about things necessarily while I'm playing, because it's kind of very relentless, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so yeah, just in general, I think it's not a rule or anything. It's sort of a weird thing, but I tend to prefer for games to have like when you're considering the pacing of a game, have these elements of moments where, you know, you're engaging the enemies, and then you can kind of stop for a bit, you know, like afterwards. So for instance, if I don't actively try to continue down the level, maybe I can just chill out. You know, if I already killed the enemies around me, maybe I can just chill in that spot for a moment and do something I need to do, and then move on and then engage more enemies. Whereas what's kind of happening here at the moment is that there's just sort of like a constant stream of enemies that's just constantly spawning. It makes it sort of a little bit annoying in a couple of ways. So one of the ways is the fact that I'm trying to play test. It makes it harder for me to stop and talk about things that I notice, which is not like you know, that's not the normal sort of natural. My gosh, the person outside is loud. That's not the normal sort of natural experience that gamers are going to have. But what they will have is when gamers are first trying to play a new game they haven't played before, you know, they want to get a handle on different mechanics, the controls, and things like this. And in order to do that, you really kind of have to sort of just screw around with things for a while. Usually just to, you know, figure out the rules and the way, you know, the controls feel and different things. There's a lot of little things that you just kind of work out like that, and that tends to work better if you're not under a constant pressure. So even if it's not like hard, like it may not be very challenging, the amount of pressure you're putting on the player, but if there is like a continuous stream of pressure, they can't really necessarily focus on some of the things they need to. Then maybe they just want to know, like, maybe they know space bars jump or whatever, but there's just like little things about like, okay, precisely how that works, that they might just want to have a moment to like experiment with that. But if there's like enemies constantly streaming in, they kind of feel like they have to focus on shooting. It's sort of like the game is just demanding that they perform without having been given that kind of breathing room to figure these things out. So that's kind of what it feels like at the moment. Obviously this is an early build, so I'm not you know, we can understand that it's not necessarily going to represent a polished experience, but something that's important to talk about, I think, nonetheless. So yeah, it does make it, unfortunately, just sort of more frustrating experience trying to playtest, because it's like I want to really get into the details of the mechanics, even in just sort of an analytical way. I guess those enemies that fly in, they don't specifically follow a path that's like towards you. It looks like they follow like a predefined path or something. But at the moment, it looks like I can just stand here, so that's helpful. So it says tutorial for hollow points. Jump is space, evade is jump a moment before hit. So I didn't even have a chance to read this before. Hover is jump while shooting down. So jump moment before hit is interesting. Guess that's just sort of like a slow falling jump kind of deal. So am I just supposed to continue to fill this up? Oh, shoot this, okay. So I tried to press the jump button, or jump key, before that bullet hit me. I don't know if that did anything. It looks like this piece of armor like fell off or something. There is a little bit, okay, so I think there's a little bit of an input latency, so maybe I just didn't press it early enough before. I think it's just down to the fact that there's, this is in a borderless window configuration, so it's probably just the VSync and everything. There's just a little bit of input lag there. So something like that that's timing based, it can be affected by that naturally. I'm trying to understand. Is it that clang sound? I think it's that clang sound. But sometimes it seems to go right through me, so I guess it's just the collision being forgiving. It's generally a good thing. It's just that I have this specific mechanic that's kind of confusing. Maybe it's just a rather thin collision or something, because like a lot of these are shooting sort of downwards, so. Okay, interesting. What? It's too much stuff on the screen. Yeah, so I guess this isn't actually doing anything. I gotta one of my eyes is being weird, so it's kind of distracting me at the moment. I apologize for that, but yeah, in general, it's quite visually busy. I start to lose some of the things on the screen. I'm wondering if I can get rid of the text at the bottom. That would also be beneficial, I think. Yeah, so a couple of things I noticed is that, like, when the enemies shoot their bullets at me, if I'm shooting at them, it kind of, I feel like their bullet kind of blends in a little bit to all the other effects that are going on right here. The other thing that stood out, I think, is like when the enemies explode, there's like a really, it doesn't last that long, but there's like a really big sort of distortion effect. It kind of covers up like a whole chunk of the screen with this effect, and can kind of obscure things. So I would suggest being careful with stuff like that, you know, especially when you're talking about avoiding bullets and things like that. And like this bullet's so glowy, it has like this giant soft effect around it, so it makes it so it's not clearly defined, if that makes sense. I think that's the thing that kind of sticks out to me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this shield guy, because it seems like I was just being stupid by just sitting there and shooting it when nothing was happening. This is really kind of awkward in this little corner I got myself into. Those other enemies are like, yeah, there's just things coming at too many different directions at once here. Yeah, feeling a bit awkward here. It's like I don't really have much in the way of maneuverability, and oh gosh darn. Just things coming at all different directions. The enemies take a lot of bullets to kill, which is something that feels a little off to me, maybe. Yeah, you really have to sit there and hammer on them for a while, and so that means that a couple of things. For one thing, it's a little bit not. That's annoying to listen to. Okay, it's not as satisfying. You have to shoot something a zillion times because it makes it feel like your weapon isn't very strong. And the other thing is that, like, when you do end up in these situations where it feels like there's enemies that are kind of all around you and they're all attacking at different angles at once, one of the ways you can kind of handle that as a player, if the game allows you to, is to kind of take out the enemies quickly enough before they overwhelm you, you know, or they start, you know, just throwing too many projectiles or whatever. Whereas in this game, that is just kind of impossible so far because it just takes so long. You just have to sit there and hold the button down on like one enemy for several seconds before they die. And that's, I think, what contributes a lot to that feeling of like there's a lot of things just surrounding me and it's a bit much, you know. Like that probably wouldn't feel that way if these enemies died much quicker to my attacks, you know. And of course that's like a game balance kind of thing in terms of the difficulty balance, but you can always increase the, if you're worried about it being easy, you can always increase the difficulty in other ways. You know, just add more enemies, stuff like that. You can kind of increase the pacing of the game in general as well that way, so stuff to consider. Can I just like ignore some of these guys? Is that a thing? I don't what, I don't know what that guy is doing. Like I'm just very confused that he's just like flying around. Um, okay, yeah, it's just confusing movement, and I also start to blend in a little bit of like the brown enemies on a brown background. Whoa, that was weird. And like you see how these bullets are kind of blending into this glowy bit in the background here. Be a little bit hard for me to keep track of things visually here. I don't know what to do about this part. So I'm looking at I'm looking up here at the top right. I'm trying to make sense of whatever that is. I guess, and the game did suggest like just never letting go of the button here, and I understand it like carries me up with the stuff that piles up, which is really a weird sort of concept, but I guess it kind of works. Yeah, it's really hard for me to keep track of where my reticle is when I'm not looking directly at it. So that's something that's just kind of wait, did that die from me shooting it? You just have to shoot it for like several minutes and then it dies suddenly? Or was something else? There's that other alien flying around. I don't know if it flew into it or something. Like I don't really know what's going on. Either way, it was kind of confusing. Yeah, it's sort of a trait of this style of game where it kind of divides your attention between your aiming and your moving your character, because you can't really look at both at the same time. You can't focus on both at the same time. But I do think that this is probably... Oh, whoa, okay. Hold on. Can I, No, grab the ledge. Oh, okay. So it'll let me aim in these directions, but it won't let me aim over here. So that's kind of weird. It doesn't, it's not very intuitive, because it looks like he should easily be able to, like, to reach over here. So it's kind of unexpected. What the heck? Why did I fall like that? Oh, did it? Somehow that got blown up. Was it from me falling, or? Oh, there's this thing shooting at me. Okay, I didn't see that. I feel like, oh. Some of these projectiles, especially like that rocket, it looks like something you could shoot, but shooting just didn't do anything, so I guess it was just sort of counterintuitive there. I'm not really sure what to do about that rocket. It was kind of funny how I ended up riding it for a bit, but then it's like, what? I don't know how to respond. What, was I supposed to jump off of it or something? Guess I just gotta wait for this to fill up. I did forget about the little hover. That looks like it's pretty useful then. Okay. Wow. Whoa, what is happening exactly? So, oh, okay. So if I'm shooting, I think that's what's happening. So I was trying to figure that out for a little bit. I noticed some of the times it seemed like I would like kind of fall really fast and like I'd end up sort of diving into the bullet pile or whatever, into the shells. Um, I was a little bit confused about that. I think what it might be is if you shoot like kind of the opposite of doing the hover, if you shoot upwards, it might kind of push you down real fast, something like that. It seems to be. Um, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying. Unfortunately, the combination of trying to avoid attacks and stuff while also aiming. It's another thing which, what I mentioned before about like enemies not taking as many shots to kill. It just so happens that that kind of helps with that as well, because you can kind of bounce your focus back and forth more effectively. So, for instance, an enemy shoots at you, and you look at your character, and you can, you make sure you dodge it in time. Then you can like look back and you can shoot the enemy. If the enemy has to be shot like a million times, then you have to like try to like you're trying to do both at the same time, because you're just trying to hold the reticle like on them while you're shooting them, and it, like it's really kind of annoying. But if you just have this moment where you can kind of briefly like, okay, switch your brain over to dodging and then switch your brain over to shooting at them, and then that actually works to kill them, because they don't last forever. That can just sort of feel a lot better, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah, so that actually this looks extremely janky. I think I'm sort of stuck under the blocks there a little bit, but we got out of that okay. Oh, what is this at the bottom? It's the spirit form, gain momentum, and crash into enemies. Like, where did this come from? And I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. Gain momentum and crash into enemies. Is this supposed to break? I don't... Is this invincible for some reason? It doesn't look any different from stuff before. What's going on? There's like a boss, I guess. Oh, there's bullets over here. Oof, yeah, hard to see where I'm aiming, while also seeing bullets and everything else. Alright, yeah, we have some of these like dust effects that are like covering me up. So it looks like I didn't... Okay. Yeah, so... I think I'm probably not going to Wait a minute, what is... That's one of the annoying things about... Oh my goodness. Okay. So I was trying to figure this out. Apparently, when the enemies shoot these red bullets, the bullets actually have collision, and they block your shots for some reason, which is very peculiar to me. I don't. I can't off the head think of a game that does that kind of thing. It's certainly not. I don't know. I don't really understand the thought process behind that. It just seems like it's making things harder for the player for no reason. Like it's not really like a. I don't know how to explain it. It's just it's sort of unintuitive, I would say. In addition to also kind of making it harder to kill the enemies than it should be, anyways. So it just seems weird. So. Yeah, I would probably reconsider that. I don't really know what the thought process is behind that particular detail. And amidst all the other chaos in the game, I think it just kind of throws in like another way for the player to feel like things are kind of out of their control. Like, I don't know if they would necessarily figure that out. It's quite hard to even see visually because of all the effects and stuff. So yeah, a little bit weird. But I'll probably try to wrap this up. I think overall I've probably mentioned what I need to for my experience with it so far. Very interesting, of course. I didn't understand what that thing about the momentum, like the spirit form or something, was. So yeah, I don't know. So in the top left, this meter has like a little angle to the top of it here. I don't know what that is indicating. I don't know if that's just trying to make this more stylized or something, or if that's segmenting out this bar. I didn't really look at that much when I was playing, so. But yeah, this is interesting. I think the biggest thing for me is just the general intelligibility of things, like just keeping track of everything. Like I mentioned, this genre game with this kind of aiming and everything is unfortunately just a little bit harder to track than other games are, just by the nature of it, just because the fact that you have to split your attention between either you look at where you're aiming or you look at where you're moving with your character. So on top of that, if you don't take care of the fact of the necessity of needing to make everything very visually intelligible and everything, then you can end up with something that feels very out of control pretty easily. So I think in general, just the visuals could be made to support that better. Top of that, I would definitely consider making the enemies not take as many shots to kill. I think that would streamline a lot of things. It'd be very beneficial in general. Those small enemies that, like, there's a big swarm of them at the start, those didn't appear that many times from what I remember, but they were pretty annoying. I think mainly because, for one thing, they were like really overwhelming in terms of the fact that you had to just, they were constantly streaming out and you had to just like constantly shoot at them for several seconds, and you couldn't really do anything else while it was happening. But on top of that, it's like it was really easy to kind of miss a couple of them, even though you're just spamming bullets at them constantly, just because there's so many and they're so fast. I didn't really care for that particular design. I don't think that necessarily suited the gameplay and the way it was implemented, and just sort of felt annoying. It felt like the other enemies kind of at least fit the pacing of the game a little better or something like that. So I don't know if that could be adjusted or whatever. But I will say this is probably admittedly not a game I should have playtested while being a little bit mentally tired at the moment. I actually haven't slept well recently because of having to adjust my sleep schedule here. So I feel like I kind of overwhelmed myself a little bit. But on top of that, yeah, it was a little bit challenging to play test this. But I'm hoping that this was some useful feedback for you. Very interesting game. So that mechanic of just like dumping the shells in and kind of climbing on top of them is really kind of strange, but interesting. It's like nothing really wrong with it. Um, so that's interesting to see. And yeah, you know, it's stylish, and it felt like there was a visceral sort of aspect to it that was sort of a focus of this design, which is something I can appreciate. You know, there's definitely a lot of aesthetic elements in there that are pretty cool so far. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see the different little things, some good ideas in here. The idea of having a little evasive maneuver, a timing based evasion, and you kind of work it into, you know, not using extra buttons and stuff for that. That's pretty cool. Um, even though it was a little bit tricky to do that a lot of the time because, you know, maybe I'm trying to aim and I can't really stare at my character the whole time and stuff like that. So, you know, there's different challenges with this sort of game. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.